Hey billionaires, you're tuned in to the AFTERBUZZ TV after show for Billions, Season 2, Episode 8, The Kingmaker. Join us and special guest, Marc Kudisch. Yes, that's right, Dr. Gus is in the house as we break down the episode and give you our thoughts and predictions. Let's go!
You're tuning into the destination for TV superfan discussion, AFTERBUZZ TV. And now, let the buzz begin!
That's right, everybody. Welcome on in to the Billions After Show. Hey, let's get it. I'm your lead host, Frank Maiorana. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Let's Go Frank Cam. And her boyfriend loves her so much he'll go through travel hell just to see her. It's Andrea Fasano.
That is right. Thank you, Frank. You guys, happy Sunday. I'm Andrea Fasano, and you can find me on all social media at Andy Fasano.
Happy Billions Sunday to everybody out there. And we are excited tonight to have a special guest join us at the top of the program now. He was gracious enough to come on at past 1 a.m. New York time. It's Billions' own Dr. Gus, Marc Kudisch.
Woo!
Welcome in, Marc. How you doing?
How are you guys doing? How you doing this morning?
Good morning to you, sir. We can bring the music down, guys. And Marc, we have loved you as Dr. Gus.
Yes.
On this season of Billions. Such a change up from Wendy Rhoades being in Axe Capital. But, you know, I was reading up on you before you were coming on to our show, and you know, your career is just, it's so extensive and is primarily in Broadway shows, and you're a fantastic singer. So I guess I was most curious as to how the Billions opportunity came up for you.
You know what? It's an interesting thing. Television has changed so dramatically in like the past 6 or 7 years. And I think, you know, a large part of what my focus has been in my career for a long time it was stage work. And, you know, to do that, you got to be in New York City. But the kind of stage work that I was really used to doing, stuff that was a little more on edge, that had more tension, that was a little more fringy, started to dissipate from the mainstream Broadway. And as that was happening, more and more television was being cultivated in New York City through all of the different outlets that were sort of exploding. So strangely, it was a natural progression to a lot of television stuff that's been percolating. And Billions is very much, I think, that kind of entertainment. Mm-hmm. Well, yeah. I mean, you know, there's just a lot more stuff shot in New York City now. Mm-hmm. And it's really amazing. And in my opinion, the best shows are shot in New York City. Well, it's been fantastic, and that's just sort of how like Billions ended up. I ended up going in for the guys, for Brian and for David, and like, and we just all sort of hit it off.
Yeah, you've provided some much-needed comic relief to, you know, the heavier aspects of the season so far. You know,
well, I mean, it's that kind of thing of like, you know, when you're, it's always like the grass is always greener, but be careful because you might step in something in that grass.
You might step into a Dr. Gus performance session. But was there, I don't want to ask what your favorite scene was, but was there anything that surprised you about working on this set and with this casting crew?
Nothing, I don't want to say anything surprised me, but I would say, and I mean this with all sincerity, it's one of the most rewarding environments that I've worked in as an actor. I mean, it's just an embarrassment of riches. The writers are all brilliant. The directors were brilliant. Certainly, you know, Brian and David run an incredible set and run an incredible show, and they create the most engaging atmosphere. And I mean, you know, look at that cast of people, man. And I don't just even mean the lead principal actors. I'm talking about, you know, the recurring supporting cast it's just the best thing on television. And I think the reason that they attract the kind of talent that they, I mean, just this week's episode was amazing. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And look at the talent that they attract, and it's because of the environment that they create. I just, look, man, it was a show I always wanted to be on from the day that I saw it. You know, I've worked with Giamatti in the past. And strangely, we didn't get to work at all this season. But like, you couldn't ask as an actor to be in a better environment. It's just, the people are so nice too. I mean, everybody, it's the coolest. It's a dream situation to be working.
We are always giving kudos to everybody on the Billions crew, the cast. I mean, just everyone. We've had, Condola Rashad on the show. We think we're good friends with Kelly and Dollar Bill. And
Kelly, I know
he's
Kelly
awesome.
Too. I know Kelly and I well.
He is so great, and he's such a friend of the show. And I actually personally interviewed one of the camera operators, Ike and Weiss, and the guys behind the scenes are so great as well.
Yeah. But that's what I mean. Like, look, when you walk on a set and you have that kind of energy, and everybody is tight and they're all friendly, but they're incredibly fighting. I mean, my luxury this season was coming on in a recurring situation where I knew that my arc was connected to other arcs of the characters in the show. So, they were welcoming from day one, and then you really feel a part of that family. And that goes for the crew. I mean, Ike's amazing behind the camera. And when you get to set and people are happy to see you, there's nothing bad. It's the same on the stage. It's sort of like, you're doing a good job when you can make your crew laugh, or when you entertain the guys that are used to seeing it over and over and over again, then you're doing it right.
Right. And speaking of laughing, your character brought such laughs to the screen of Billions. Can you tell me about the role and how you got into it, how you became this Gus character?
Became him. Well,
Temporarily, of course.
From the minute that I sort of read it, I mean, I remember when I was, I was just going over the lines the night before I was going in to meet with the guys, and my wife even said to me, she was like, this sounds like it was written for you.
Oh, that's awesome. It's hysterical.
To find out that actually, I think the writer that was originally writing the role I was one of the people they had in their mind, because he knew my and I remember reading the role going, this is really big for TV, Like, the thing about stage is, you're out in front of 12, 13, 1,400 people, and intimacy is something that you're sharing on a very large stage. So it's sort of dynamic in a particular way that television is obviously very different. So you're careful when you walk into television or film auditions to really sort of focus everything down and keep it all very small, And I remember when I read the role, I was like, this guy is not small. There's nothing small. And I remember when I walked in the room, I had sort of choice A and choice B. My instinct was choice A, but, I wanted to go in with a little bit of B. And the guys were like, no, he's huge. That's why we wrote it this way. And, auditioning for those guys was so much fun, because it was literally nothing more than a conversation. So just full throttle from the minute that I kind of opened my mouth, and they encouraged that. So then we just kept going, and it was funny because I think I was the first person to audition for the role. I think I was. I'm pretty sure I was, because I had to catch a flight immediately afterward. And the minute I walked in the room, I literally said to the guys, look, guys, I got to go. So,
what a great way to start an audition.
Yeah, really.
Pretty intense. It was pretty great. And, you couldn't have asked for better people to audition for and work with. So, Gus is just who he is. He's really out there. And I think he's the antithesis of who and what Wendy was, and obviously is now again. And I think that, that was important for Axe, certainly, to realize what he didn't have. But it was always a kick in the pants. It's been a kick in the pants, and every day you walk into work and people are like, oh, Gus is back. It's a nice thing. And I love the show. I'm as much of a fan of the show as anybody else.
I was going to ask, did you watch any of season 1? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Of course. A, because it's a New York-based show. B, because I love Paul Giamatti. Phenomenal guy. He's a great person, and he's a brilliant actor. And and I'm a fan, or I have been, of Damian's forever. So, like, you know, you've got these two great guys at the helm, and Kelly has been a friend of mine for a while. We've worked on stage together. So there were a lot of reasons to be attracted to the show. And when the opportunity came to become a part of it, especially something I think as smart and as sophisticated and as funny and as tension-filled as the show is, those don't come around too often. And when they do, you grab them by the and you roll with it.
I see the little Gus.
Well, I was just
going
gonna
to
say, what would
just
Gus
while he's
call
talking.
that?
Normally, it's so great.
Gus literally say, you know, grab him by the honkers, baby.
One of my favorite scenes, not only, I mean, we have to say where you were practicing for the Tour de France in your office, but also my favorite scene with you was with Wags, you know, getting sushi, when you were kind of exploring what's going on with him, because it was a more toned down side of you. You know, I don't know what best verbiage to use there, but I kind of liked it more than the office scenes for you.
Well, I think, you know, again, I think Gus is there to serve a particular purpose,
Right.
to serve extreme, in some ways even more extreme than Wags. Only, you know, in that here's a guy that's literally, I mean, he's sort of a wild card. He's a Tron, if you will. He's a freelance, you know, who's coming into the office, and there's no, and the great thing about Gus is that there's no getting to know you time. You know, Gus is Gus, and when he walks in the room, it's his energy, and that's it. And so, you know, there's no foreplay. It's just, and that sort of was a lot of fun to explore. The fact that this guy was literally just a battering ram, and that's what he stood for, and that's who he is. But like, the nice thing about it is that from that scene that you're talking about, you also get the sense, because it's true. I mean, you know, you get to a certain age where you feel as full or as vital, but you know that other people are looking at you going, you know, your time is probably near. That was what, you know, set Wags off, at least for the, you know, first half of the season. And, you know, it was Gus that really said to him, you know, guys like us. And then that just gives you the sense of why this guy is full throttle.
Absolutely.
I mean, you know, look, why go slow when you know that a certain amount of time, man, you know, it's like, go full throttle. You're going to burn out. Well, we're all going to burn out. So you might as well go full throttle.
I love it.
I like that idea. One favorite scene of mine was your scene with Taylor, because that, I think, was the biggest contrast between the way Wendy would have handled Taylor and the way that you did, which we saw in tonight's episode, the way that Wendy handled Taylor. What was the environment like when you're shooting that scene with Taylor? I'm sure there must have been some people cracking up, you know, behind the camera while you guys are all working on that.
Dude, there was always cracking up when I was on set. Like, because just listening to somebody, look, we all wish, you know, there's a part of all of us that wants to be like that. We just want our ids to go. And when you see somebody that has that kind of confidence to just say what they feel and, you know, not apologize for something that might be, for a lot of people, quite wrong, you know, that's very attractive. There's a lot of us that I think feel like we don't have permission to be that way in the world.
Right.
Gus doesn't look at things that way. I mean, I could tell you, I remember when I walked in for like the episode tonight, when, you know, you see Gus and he's doing his self-help seminars, and the stuff that they wrote in those pamphlets, that pamphlet that Toby, you know, holds up really quickly.
Yeah.
The pamphlets were so detailed. I got on set and, like, I think it was Brian who was like, "Have you read this? You have to read this." And literally, even Condola was like, "Have you read this? You have to read this." And it was so detailed, and it was really amazing stuff. There's like a part of me that hopes perhaps, you know, in the future we'll actually get to talk about the stuff that was written in that thing, because it was so intense. And it talks about what he's done and how he got into doing this whole thing to begin with. And I just literally was like, who wrote this? This is and it's intense. But like, what was the point now? I don't know what the point was. I don't know. I have no idea. Oh, okay. So back to Asia. That scene was great to do because she's also really cool and I like her. But yeah, again, I think, like with Gus, he just goes right to it. I mean, there's no feel nice and how are you feeling and it's funny. And I'm just going to say this honestly. I mean, we shot all of this stuff before the election.
Interesting.
Think about that. All of this was shot before the election. So this idea of this guy seems really funny. Certainly felt really funny to us then. This guy who comes out with his rhetoric and just says these things in this big, bold way. And is it bullshit? Sure, a lot of it's bullshit. But does that make it less effective or less true for certain people?
Yes, and also another real-life coincidence was Preet Bharara, who was the attorney for the Southern District of New York, was actually fired by the Trump administration, and it had a parallel with Chuck's storyline for this season, and it's all very prescient. That was not known at the time that the show was shot, so I want to further your point with that example.
I'm telling you, man, it's
really
it's
crazy.
Kind of crazy. Like art imitating life, and what's more ridiculous at times, or what's more surprising at times. I mean, I look at somebody like Gus right now, and I think that I'm curious to see how like audiences would have responded to the character, let's say in the summer when we were shooting it, as to what they're responding to now. and a lot of these characters, it's just so interesting how, our point of view can change with what's happening in society. And, but I mean, Gus is like, seriously, that's a voice that's out there and very strong, and we laugh. But, part of him that there's a part of him I genuinely, I don't agree with, but I definitely respect.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, look, I know we've taken up a lot of your time. It's 1:30 a.m. on the East Coast, so we'll give you one final question. We have a tradition here at AfterBuzz where we give a prediction at the end of every episode, and I'm sure you know what's coming the rest of the way, so you probably can't give us something too...
Dude.
Oh, you don't? Okay, great. So, give us a prediction that you have for the rest of the season.
Yes.
What's my prediction?
Yeah, like if you have a...
You can take any storyline. Here, I'll give you one because I have a pretty specific feeling on one. Do you think Chuck and Wendy will end up back together by the end of the season?
I think, this is what I think, and this is why I love this show so much. I think, I want to say yes and no. And here's why. Because I think that what I love about the show is every time you think you see a conclusion to something or a closure to something, someone gets the rug pulled out right from underneath them. And that's what I love about the show. No one gets to be comfortable. Show. So like right now, we saw Chuck tonight. Chuck's sitting high. Chuck's out of the woods. Things are going really well. All of a sudden, he's ready to run for governor. And personally, I'm like, are you out of your mind? Dude, just take a chill pill for a second. Be thankful. No, that's not going to happen. So now, and I love the final scene. And I remember, table read, we get to hear all this stuff, and it's great at the table. But then when you actually see a shot, man, it's like, oh. And, when he comes bawling in, just literally yelling for him, and you'd think he'd be scared shitless. And in fact, he's going, look at him, he's unraveling. It's my time now. And you just go, oh, dude, don't drink the Kool-Aid. So I honestly don't know what's going to happen, because I know the way that these guys continually ping pong. And the great thing about the show is that every time you think you know where it's leading, they turn a hard corner on you. And if Chuck and Wendy get back together, man, because like think about it, she's going to figure out that it's really only happening as quickly as he wants it to because he's going to be running for governor. And so she's going to be pissed. And so, like, and, you know, of course, the minute that Axe finds out he's running for governor, he's going to want to fuck with him. So, pardon my language, but I mean, you know, like, no, I don't think they're going to get together. But then, you know, that's I don't want to know. That's why when I'm working on a show, like, I remember Kelly O'Coin and I were doing a show off Broadway, and both of us were recurring on House of Cards. And our characters were on different slots. And every day we'd walk in going, did you get a new script? Don't tell me a thing. That's how it is.
That's so great.
I don't want anyone to tell me.
What a cool life.
In an episode, don't talk to me. I want to watch it like everyone else.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank you.
Let's just watch and find out, dude.
That's right. We're all going to find out together the rest of the season. So Andy's going to give out your Twitter handle, and if there's any other places that the people can find you, I know you have a website, right? It's markkudisch.com.
.net. But you know what? I always say Twitter's the best place to be. It's the immediate place to be.
Mm-hmm. And that's at Marc with a C, Kuds, MARCKUDS. So, oh my gosh, thank you so much for your time tonight. Thank you for staying up late to hang out with us.
Keep watching.
Oh, we will.
We do. We will. Thank you so much. That's Dr. Gus, Marc Kudisch joining us tonight. Wow, what a great interview that was. He's so exactly
awesome.
like his character.
So great.
You saw the Gus-isms coming out. He's still there, so he is so light.
What character? I love
Gus,
that. I love that.
He comes out every even while he was talking.
I mean, because that's one of our, as fans, one of our biggest questions. How different is this from who you are?
Right.
And he is so, I mean, just such a wonderful actor. And to go there, like, he really did. He was a vivacious character in the season 2. So much fun. Like, when you were talking about one of the first shows of the season, how many new people were introduced? Yeah. He was killer, and I love the way he was even brought back in tonight, you know, having his own seminar and stuff. So
yeah, he's really good, and if you just spend 5 minutes on YouTube just searching his name, you'll see him, like, videos of him singing. Mm-hmm. I mean, he played. He was in Finding Neverland, the Broadway musical, Beauty and the Beast. I mean, his credit list just goes on and on. So, listeners out there, be sure to give Marc Kudisch a follow on Twitter. And
he was in Bye Bye Birdie, one of my favorites.
Yeah, he originated the role.
Yeah, love it.
So, great interview there. But let's move into the episode breakdown. So, just coming off of what Marc was saying, I mean, this was very much a political, what's Rhoades going to do in terms of his political leanings type of episode, and we received a lot of clarity. We know the office that he wants to run for now, which is governor, and that Black Jack Foley, played by David Strathairn, which is awesome to have him on this show. I mean, he plays such a great affected, like, establishment figure, right? With that affected tone. It's not quite British, but it's not an American accent too.
Right.
He's just so perfect.
He's above everything.
Right.
And he just screams money.
Yeah.
Right? Just wealth and
privilege.
Above the law, privilege. And that's what made his last line to Axe so funny when he was like, I effing love them for
parties.
partying.
Yeah.
You know, like, that was so out of character for who he's playing, and it was awesome.
Yeah, you're exactly
like,
right.
What?
It was the perfect way to end that scene.
Very much
but
so.
really, the crux of this episode is who's going to win over Black Jack Foley. And Axe goes about it in a way to actually screw up Foley's businesses and actually damage him when everybody that is working with Foley has no intention of crossing him, even though Axe offers $1 billion at the end of that steel scene. Everyone has a number. He's right by that, but it really doesn't sway anybody. So eventually Axe has to go the positive route and get some charity that has some influence in to name him Man of the Year, which earns him a meeting. One thing I noticed about that episode that scene that I wanted to ask you about was when Foley was about to finish his sentence and Axe cut him off. He said, okay, so by now you must know. And then Bobby cut him off and said, yeah, I know that you weren't trying to F me that you're working for someone else. I think Foley was about to tell Bobby that it was Rhoades.
That's a good point. I didn't think of it that way.
Okay.
I thought it was pretty smart that they were like kind of on the same page. I really interesting. I didn't think of it that way. I did notice that he cut him off.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh wow, these guys are totally reading each other. So interesting.
Yeah, see, that was my big takeaway from watching that scene, because you see, Foley get a little bit shook by what Bobby was going to say. And sometimes, and this is so true in life too, if you just shut up and listen and let the other person talk for a bit, you can
find
learn
out
a lot
what you need to know. Yeah,
absolutely right.
Funny that you should mention that, because I did notice that in the speech that Foley was giving, he kind of just talked a lot, and it was like he was dangling something in front of Axe. But I'm kind of like, Axe is going to find out. Look at the lengths he went to get you, just to corner you and have you in that uncomfortable situation, and you called him into your office. So he's going to find out, especially when it's someone like Chuck Rhoades, who's just like a thorn in his side. He's going to figure it out. So for you to be so like theatrical about like, but when you do find out, like he's going to know tomorrow or tonight at your party.
I think ultimately Foley is unaffected by Bobby's power, and so he doesn't have to worry about what Axe is going to think about it at the end of the day. Foley is well taken care of. He is in the world of white glove parties at the Yale Club, and he's already said he doesn't have to worry about what Axelrod has to do.
Right.
So I did think that the way Axe went about it was a bit heavy-handed, trying to screw up his business, coming to the guy's office and just blurting out directly what he wants instead of being a little bit more sly about it.
But to that point, it's nice that the writers put in the whole scene with Wags, who calls Bobby out on it, because then it's like that doesn't go missing amongst even like someone who knows him best.
Yeah.
That he's become obsessed.
Yeah, I thought Wags was great tonight. I loved that he got in Mafee's face and, and put his foot up on the desk right in front of him. It's just such a dominance play. Like, you're going to accept that meeting and we're going to go out and we're going to party. But all of it was Wags' ruse to get their banking company, Spartan Knives, to drop 20% in fees.
Which just shows you where Wags is at in his head. He's back in the game. He's doing his job, just like Bobby said. But he's there. It surprised all of us. None of us thought it was going that way.
No.
Especially, just like Mark was saying, like there's always that turn. And so we're all anticipating Wags to go back down the rabbit hole, but instead he shocks us all. So I thought that was cool.
Yeah, I thought the end of the episode was crazy. I did not see it coming. When Bobby got on his motorcycle, I thought he was just going for like an anger ride.
You did?
Oh yeah, I didn't know that he was going to the Yale Club.
I thought he was going there.
Oh, you did? You knew right from the beginning?
I was like, no way. He's really good. What is he? And he did exactly what I thought he was going to do. But I kind of think that was a misstep.
It was a misstep.
I mean, obviously.
Because, Bobby has a hunch, but he has it wrong.
Yeah,
he thinks
does.
Chuck did it, but it wasn't. It was Rhoades Sr. And even though he has this shouting match and tries to embarrass him, Chuck could have easily had security take him out.
Yeah.
But Chuck knew something was afoot, allowed him to stay and get his allowed Bobby to stay, get his insults off. And then instantly Chuck realizes what happened. His dad messed with the Sandicott deal. But you know what? At the end of it, Chuck isn't mad, because he showed
Which was surprising.
Flaw. I was surprised. I thought that they were going to go out on the balcony and Chuck was going to give it to his dad.
Absolutely. I thought the same thing. But that's one of the things you were just talking about. Listening, Chuck does that. He has patience, and he lets his, I was going to say partner, it's not his partner, his enemies kind of unfold themselves, and so he waits for the information. Where he didn't do that today was with Wendy.
In what way?
For not listening to her when they were having their little conversation. I'm saying he's patient. He's patient with all of his adversaries, I guess.
Well, Wendy was really deceptive tonight, because she walks in, has this whole conversation about honesty, and then Chuck falls on the sword. I'm bummed we didn't get to see his date, though.
I I know.
I was a little upset about that.
But I am glad that they mentioned it because we all knew it was either going to happen or had to happen. It's kind of interesting that they didn't put it in the show at some point.
Well, we got a flashback.
Yeah.
So they put it in. But
Now.
I think because this scene was more important than the date between Chuck and I believe the character's name is Melanie from martial arts class.
Jiu-jitsu.
Sorry.
Okay.
Jiu-jitsu is a martial art.
I was just naming it.
Thank you so much for that clarification. So Wendy obviously went for the home run with my boy, Craig Hedeker.
Right.
And Chuck straight up calls it adultery. So was that appropriate, knowing that Chuck just straight up called it adultery, that he kissed another woman, for Wendy to hide the fact that she was riding?
Yeah,
with
he said he felt like he was committing adultery.
Yeah.
And I mean, as we were getting the flashbacks then of Wendy, I was so like, she's not going to tell him because she now has the upper hand. The whole thing with them has been power, right? So she knew not only would she lose the upper hand, but he would have so much on her. And he was also forthcoming with what actually happened with him, which was real for him, you know? I knew she wasn't going to give in to that.
See, I thought she was going to tell like a half truth. Like, yes, I met with this man, but I didn't have feelings for him, and
or
ultimately,
say something like she made out or something like that.
Yeah.
Like to kind of have a balance. Like
Yeah.
we both did it. It's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But she went way
completely
further
diverted
than
like
he did.
the conversation.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying. So he gave that up and cut her off. And so if he just stopped and listened, he might have gotten all that.
Because even the tone in which Wendy said, "You just look so effing hot tonight,"
it was weird.
It seemed strange, right?
It was
just
weird.
seemed not part of her normal vocabulary, and the tone was different from the scene, which actually works really well because when you're lying to someone like that,
Yeah.
you're, if you ask someone a direct question and that's difficult for them to answer because the truth, they don't want to say the truth. Like, your body has a reaction. Your mind goes to a place where, okay, what am I going to say? Instead of just telling the truth.
Right.
So, I thought that was perfectly played.
Right. Because you're saying there's a tell.
Yeah,
and
there's a little bit of a tell. And her tone went way up. And all this energy all of a sudden, "Oh, you just look so effing hot tonight." And it was like, what?
Because it distracted him. So.
But then they didn't even kiss on the lips. It was like on the side cheek.
I
kiss.
thought his, when we were getting the flashbacks and we saw his face, I thought it was them cutting to the fact that she had told him. And then there was old Chuck with that look.
Okay, yeah.
And I got nervous. I actually had a little anxiety inside. I was like, oh no, please no. But you want them to be honest. They're having that whole honesty conversation. Yeah. But yeah, we're getting a lot of chatter in here. The moral of tonight's episode is listen. That's from Captain Osage, who also had a comment that I'll bring up in a little bit about Gus when we go back to that kind of stuff. And the fact that we think that Taylor was going to, not Taylor, Wendy was going to tell Chuck, but she kind of had, I don't know, a little moral check. I think she had a balance of power, like the whole thoughts of everything, just seeing that.
I think there was a lot of guilt from her.
Absolutely.
After he said that he felt like he was committing adultery,
From
even though
kissing.
they kissed.
Yeah.
Because he's still there. He's still in it with her. And she had enough of a separation, at least for a night. Like, I remember that scene in the hotel room where she's waking up and kind of just over it and wanting Craig to leave. I
was surprised that she even came back and brought that conversation up again, because we were led to believe that that's something she wanted.
Right.
When even though he got defensive, he's the one who said, "Oh, you want to see other people?" She kind of went along with it. I thought that was kind of what she wanted. And then to go run off, sleep with somebody else, and come back and be like, "Yo, I was wrong." How do you say that and not think that you're going to have to bring up what you've done?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just part of what happens when you come back and say, "Oh, well, by the way, I did this." I don't know.
Yeah, but it's going to set up the rest
I'm
of
an
the
honesty
season.
girl, though, so.
Sure.
You know?
She is, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Her boyfriend says yes. Okay, was there anything else that you wanted to get to? I know we're a little bit short on time tonight, but we're so glad to have Mark. So
Yeah,
we're
well,
doing a little bit of a
let's go back to
breakdown.
Basically, Captain Osage said, "Were you surprised when Gus pointed the lawyers at Steph, because they thought they were going to tell Brian to
Right.
buzz
Well,
off?"
I think Mark was talking tonight about how detailed the props were, and his storyline had ended a couple weeks ago when Wendy came back. So the crux of his character was for the beginning episodes of this season. But yeah, I mean, he does ultimately say,
I thought it was smart.
Hey, go see Steph
Yeah.
Reed. But
Because why? He had nothing to lose, nothing to gain, and he wasn't. I don't think he was doing anything wrong.
yeah, but I guess there's a point of it where, why rat on someone just for ratting?
Well, absolutely. You mean, are you disagreeing with him pointing out for them to go to Steph to talk to her?
No, I'm saying that
For him,
why
there
his
was no reason to
initial
get involved.
hesitation.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't until Connerty brings up the 5 principles of, I don't even know what it was.
Yeah, I know. I tried to get that.
Shaolin or something like that.
Something with a B.
Anyway, it wasn't until Brian brought that up where where Gus ultimately decides, okay, I'll give you guys another clue. Here's another point on the map to go to. And ultimately she decides to tell them what she knows. So it'll be interesting to see what the fallout from that becomes.
Especially since Chuck gave the go-ahead.
Chuck gave the go-ahead on the mission. And, woo, things are going to heat up here
Yeah, they are.
really quick. Okay, so let's move into the final segment of the day, which is predictions for the next episode. We've got, this is 8, so we got 9, 10, 11, 12. We got 4 episodes left. Predictions for the week to come.
And now, your AfterBuzz TV predictions.
I know this is always Andy's most challenging portion of the show.
great.
Right now her mind is racing, trying to figure out what she's going to say. So in the meantime, while you're figuring all that out, I will say that I think that the next phase of conflict here between Rhoades and Axe is going to be Rhoades attempting to undermine Rhoades' gubernatorial campaign. Can he drive a wedge in between Wendy and Chuck, so much so that he separates her from him, and then Chuck has to run as a single man? And in politics, I know in modern politics things are getting a little bit different out there. Single people are running. But ultimately, as a politician, if you want to be a governor, if you want to be president, you have to be married. It's just one of these tropes in politics. So having Wendy by Chuck's side is a very, very important aspect to his success in not only the primary, the Democratic primary, but ultimately the general election. Now, it sounds like Chuck is going to use the Sandicott episode against Axe, and that's where we're going to have our next real clash again. Because the Sandicott episode, you and I both said last week, we actually agree with what Axe is doing.
Yeah.
But there's a counter argument to that to say some corporate raiders coming in to destroy our town, and I think that's the argument that Rhoades is going to make.
Okay.
Why
because I'm thinking about what you just said as far as I don't know what's gonna happen with Sandicott. I know that Chuck is gonna go on like a glory mission of we the people, and try to make Axe look bad or get Axe and make him look better. Just be the winner for their town. We have a few, before I go into mine, we have a few predictions here. We have...
That's cue for it. She doesn't know what she wants to say yet.
I predict Wendy will pack her bags and go on a guilt trip. Chuck is going to find out about her night, which I think is true.
Good prediction.
And then we have Chuck is going to catch Axe with something, and Axe is going to be axed by the end. We'll use that as better words than what was written. And Wendy and Chuck do not get back together. So
whatever. I hate that person.
I'm gonna say that I definitely think Wendy's discretion comes out. Indiscretion comes out later, sooner than later, and that just somehow, because they're always going like this, right?
Right.
So when Chuck is kind of at just getting to the top, all this stuff's going to come down on him, and one of them is going to be Wendy. I don't know how, but we'll see. And that's definitely going to distract him in some way. And also, she is not going to want to be there for him. So that just, it's got to come out. Yeah. It's got to. And then as far as Axe, we see him unraveling. He is unraveling, but he always finds a way. He always has some moment of clarity. And that's even if he starts throwing some other people under the bus, which I can also see happening too. I don't know. I'm excited. 4 episodes left. It is. It's going to be really good. I thought this was awesome.
Frantic sprint to the finish. I think because I'm just thinking out loud now, because the show was shot in the summer and primaries tend to happen in August, I think we will see the finale episode be the results of the gubernatorial primary.
That's
How about
good.
that? How
I
about
think
that
so
for
too.
a prediction?
And I think the way they ended it in the first season with them both, I mean, no one really won, so to say. You know, it just was. I think Billions is smart enough to kind of get back there, kind of at a stalemate, like, you know. But how, I have no idea. So
well, we'll see.
We'll see.
That's it. That's all for this week, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in to the AfterBuzz TV After Show for Billions. We'll be back next week at 10 p.m. Pacific, 1 a.m. New York time. If you're up out there, Marc Kudisch is, so you could be too. Until then, we have been Andrea Fasano.
Yes, guys, thank you so much for watching. Make sure you follow us on all social media, and you can follow me at Andy Fasano.
And special thanks to her boyfriend Jason for putting up with her every day. We're just kidding, guys.
He's been really cool and hung out with us all the whole show. So.
That's right. And I am your lead host, Frank Maiorana. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Let's Go Frank M. Thanks so much for tuning in. Go out, be blessed. We'll see you back soon.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.